All right, welcome. Welcome to today's A Cool Chick live call. And today we have an amazing cool chick joining us and talking about radical self-care and true wellness. It's actually part two. So if you haven't watched part one, make sure to log into your members area at Mighty Network. So in the Cool Chicks member area, and you'll have access to all the recordings or on our Facebook group too. We have today with me Dr. Lisa Young. She is a family medicine doctor, a medical director that was in the front lines. She's been supporting Cool Chicks throughout the whole of the pandemic and way beyond that as well, with all of our questions and our thoughts related to the pandemic and our health, but also other things, a lot around mental health as well, self-care and preventative stuff. She has a very holistic approach about prevention and wellness, and she's also now a certified life coach. She not only talks the talks, but she walks the walk. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Lisa Young.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jessica. That was so sweet. I appreciate it.
Yay. Yeah, so why radical self-care and why this topic? Why is this important for you?
Well, this is a topic that's been really important for me and has come up in my own personal life. And even as a doctor, right, I've spent most of my entire life training to be a doctor, and family medicine in particular, which is all about prevention and wellness. And that's really our focus and has probably, I would say, the most holistic approach of many of the specialties in medicine. And even though I focused on my whole life in terms of training to be a medical doctor, and I know about the idea of self-care and taking care of yourself is important, only recently through my own experiences have I had major revelations about what real, true self-care is and what true wellness is. And so I thought that even if I'm a doctor and I know all of these things in theory, and all of a sudden I'm having these revelations, and why not share this with everyone else in the world so that everyone can benefit and learn about a different way of looking at health and wellness and self-care and what it really means. And for me, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you were saying like you discover what it actually means, like true wellness, right? So what do you mean by true wellness? Because you thought you had wellness before and now you discovered the true one? What does that mean for you?
So for me, well, first of all, I would say there's a very big difference, like true wellness for me can be broken down into a few different categories. And so the categories that I'd like to talk about, I think the four most obvious ones to me are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And on top of that, I would even add social and sexual wellness. And there are all other types of categories as well in terms of wellness. And for me, true wellness is essentially like the difference between surviving and thriving. And so it's the difference between being free from disease, which sometimes is what the medical community and doctors are trained to focus on, freeing someone or treating someone's disease, which is great. But it's not, being free of disease is not the same as being truly well and thriving in your life, where you're really living your life to the fullest and feeling alive as opposed to just barely getting by. And to me, this is so important because I learned this in many ways the hard way myself, right? Not that long ago, I was training to be a medical doctor in residency. I had my own health issues come up, and one thing led to another, and I kept putting my own self-care and wellness last, thinking I need to take care of other people. I don't have enough time. I barely have enough time to go to my own appointments. And I just kept essentially grinding and thinking that this is the right thing for me to do. And it got so bad to the point where I found myself depressed and totally burned out, lying in bed, not wanting to move at all, and basically feeling like I wanted to give up. right? Because I was so completely depleted and drained. And I was a doctor. I should have known better, right? That's what you think. And yet it's so much easier said than done, right? The idea of taking care of yourself is simple in theory, but not necessarily easy to implement. How many of us know what it is, like the things that we need to take care of ourselves?
And to
The things that,
prioritize. It's a question of like prioritizing it, right? Like
yeah.
it's super hard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And for me, going from that place of being so depleted and burned out and depressed, that to now living my life totally differently, where I am what I would say focusing on radical self-care and true wellness, to the point where my life has expanded in ways that I never thought were possible. And I'm living, I feel so much more alive. And as a result, I'm able to give more and love more and contribute more. And it's just a whole different ballgame. And so that's why I think this topic is important. And that's why I chose to talk about it for this 3-part or more series.
That's really awesome. And I'm really like aligned with what you're saying and in discovering the real like it's simple, right? It's simple stuff. It's hard to break certain patterns sometimes because we're not used to prioritizing it. For me, that's a big one. So last time you discussed why self-care is important. Can we just kind of skip through it for those who may not have been there? Although I highly recommend every single person here will go back and watch the recordings of that. But it's some key points that never, like, yeah, if somebody hasn't seen it yet, like, why is self-care important? Like, why should we make it a priority? Or why would it be better to make it a priority?
I
Trying
think
not to should that much.
Yes. I think that, well, there are some obvious points about why self-care is important, right? You might say that it's good to take care of yourself for your health and things. And sometimes I feel like we might just say that, and we hear about self-care and even self-love all the time, but we may easily dismiss it as something that we already know. And so maybe we don't need to hear about. And I would actually, anybody who's listening in now or listening to the replay, I thought I knew what wellness and self-care were, right? And so I would invite you to perhaps to listen to this conversation and join in on this conversation with open eyes and an open and curious mind to see that maybe there's another way of looking at it that you may not have been either thinking about or implementing in your life. And so last time we were talking about, we basically addressed a bunch of several different objections that common objections that people have in terms of self-care. So the common things that came up were, oh, I don't have enough time. And we had a few participants join last time, which was wonderful. And so the common things that came up with when I say you need to take care of yourself, you need to implement more self-care in your life, what came up was, I don't have enough time. I feel like it might be selfish. And those were the two most common things, where if I do any more self-care, it was almost like there's not permission given to have the time to take care of yourself. And in fact, and then I also hear from other people in my life and patients that I take care of, or even clients that I have, or coaching clients, of not only do I not have enough time and not have enough, that it's maybe selfish, that it's a luxury, right? That it's something that I can do it's a luxury, and it's not that important, and I can get by without it, and things like that. And I would say to you, what if you don't have time to not take care of yourself? What if self-care, in fact, will give you and provide you even more time, even more energy, even more creativity, allow you to love and give even more, and to be even more productive? And I'm pausing because I want everyone to just let that sit for a second, because that seems so backwards, right? If you need to take the time to take care of yourself, well, of course, like I know I'm speaking from personal experience. I didn't think I had the time for it. And so I convinced myself of all of these things when I realized actually my revelation is, so one of the things that helped me shift and realize like, oh, this is what true self-care is recently, is my own coach said, slow down. And I'm like, but I am but I am working very slow. Like, what do you mean slow down? And when I took that to heart and really truly slowed down to the point where I was able to tune into my body and give my body whatever it needed in any given moment without judgment about how long it might take, how many hours, how many days that I needed to take care of myself, that's when everything shifted. And so, in fact, I became, with that true self-care, then I became more productive. And I showed up in a different way. I was able to help more people. And I created more time for myself because I'm not chasing myself, trying to recover after running myself into the ground. And the other thing that I want to review from last time is a little bit more of the physiology, because it's not just about self-care in this moment. We talked about last time the importance of we made a statement, even, I think, Jessica, you said it, that self-care or lack of self-care could even mean life or death. And that is a really extreme statement. But if you were to think about it in terms of physiology, when we are in a stress state, we think usually the more stressed we are, we tend to think, oh, less time we have for self-care. And the more we think that self-care is a luxury. But in fact, it is in those moments of stress, when our stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, are really, really soaring through our bodies, those are the times when it's important for us to take care of ourselves, because we're not meant to have long-term periods of stress. And so in a brief moment, let's say, physiologically speaking, our stress hormones are in reaction to an acute stress. Let's say if, back then, if we encountered a bear, our stress hormones allow us to react quickly. But we're not meant to have stress hormones maintained really high for a very long period of time. And what happens over time, as you continue to grind, continue to have the levels of stress hormones very high, then it affects your heart rate, your blood pressure, your sugar levels. It can cause digestive problems. It can even cause fertility problems. And all of these things, acutely, it might mean feeling tired. It might mean insomnia. It might mean anxiety or headaches and things like that. And over time, as you build it up over and over and over again, that could mean high blood pressure, diabetes, infertility, irritable bowel syndrome, all of these things. And I really just want to take a moment to highlight that this is not fluffy, luxurious self-care. This is something that is a non-negotiable. And that's the point that we were really driving home last time when we were having the group discussion about it, because we take it for granted that our bodies are so resilient. But if we keep pushing it and not take care of it ourselves in the radical self-care way that I'm about to talk about, we are risking putting ourselves for long-term chronic illness issues. And that's just not worth it, because if you talk about money, time, energy, all of those go down the drain if you're trying to deal with a chronic illness, right? And that's when I start to see patients come to me and say, because they're not focusing on the prevention, on the self-care and the wellness piece, and they maybe aren't taught or trained to do that, now they come and they say, oh, I can't sleep, so I need a pill for that. Or I have this problem and I need a pill for that. I have pain here and I need a pill for that. When it's really just a Band-Aid thrown onto this wound that'll only get bigger and bigger until you have to address it, until you potentially end up in the hospital, right? And I'd say this not to scare people or to put fear in people. It's just to say, like, this is this is one way that you could see, if you walk it all the way out, why self-care is so important. And also the behaviors, when we are putting self-care or our own self-care last, what happens is we may say, oh my God, I have a deadline. I need to get stuff done. So then to stay awake, because you maybe didn't get enough sleep, you have stimulants or coffee to stay awake. And then you're wired throughout the day, and maybe you get some more work done. But then by the end of the day, you are too tired. I mean, you're tired, but you can't fall asleep, and you're having trouble sleeping. And then you might need something to unwind, like wine or alcohol, or you might say, oh, I need a sleeping pill. And then this is just one example of many that could happen. And you're creating this vicious cycle for yourself of lots of medications that you're having side effects from, and then you're taking more on top of it. And just imagine the negative cycle that could perpetuate. So I would say self-care, why is it important? Because not only is it important for your short-term and long-term health, but it's important if you want to live a full life, right? If you want to create more time and more energy and more productivity and be in more of a flow state, and be able to help and contribute to even more people in your life, that's why self-care is important.
Oh, so important. And it brings me to my next question, Lisa, which is, we touch base on that too. And like, what actually is radical self-care? Because a lot of times and I speak to myself, so I'm going to say I do things where I say, oh, it's self-care, when it's really avoidance, or it's not really self-care. It's the opposite. Right? But it may feel like self-care because people say, oh, take a bath, sleep, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, but really self-care may be spending the time to reorganize my desk and like clean out things and purge, and that would be self-care instead of ignoring it and going to take a nap. Right? So for me, like, this is what I mean, we kind of talked about that where what really is radical self-care?
So I came up with this terminology because I wanted to really differentiate it from what we hear about self-care all the time. And I think it's a word that's thrown around a lot. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions about self-care. So maybe first what I'll do is I looked up the definition that you find on Google in terms of what self-care is, and I'll read that to you, and then I'll differentiate it with what I am calling radical self-care. So let's see. The definition that I found was, self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. And it's also the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. And so for me, what I'm calling radical self-care, and I can go a little bit more into detail about what I mean, what it is and what it isn't. But for me, the definition, I want to say that radical self-care is not just about preserving or protecting your health. And it's not just during periods of stress like these definitions implied. And for me, it's more about very consciously and consistently tuning into your body and providing to your mind, body, and spirit exactly what it needs in any given moment, no matter what. And so I'll say that one more time.
Yes, I was about to say, can you say that again?
So I was going to say, to me, what I'm defining as radical self-care is consciously and consistently providing what your mind, body, and spirit needs in any given moment to truly thrive and flourish, no matter what. And so for me, part of that is that you're providing it consistently and all the time. And in every given moment, you're tuning into what your body and your mind and your spirit might need, and you're giving it no matter what. That means that it's not negotiable. That means it doesn't come last. That means it needs to come first. because that is the foundation from which then you live the rest of your life. And so that's how it's different than how we might think about self-care now, because it could be an extreme. In any given moment, you might need just, like 10 minutes or 20 minutes to meditate. Or your body, if you really tune into it, might need a whole day of just rest because you had burned yourself out before. And so it also in this definition that I created, it's also embedding in it the permission that you listen to your body and you hear what it needs, your mind, body, and spirit, what it needs, and then giving it, because that is what's most important.
Absolutely love that. And I just, one of our people on Facebook, I'm not sure who it is, but thank you so much for posting. I'm going to repeat it again because I think it's so powerful. Consciously and consistently providing what your mind, body, and spirit needs at any given moment to truly flourish no matter what. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. She's brilliant, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Lisa Young on radical self-care and true wellness. Not only is she a doctor, but she's also a certified life coach and done many programs. And you are lucky to be listening to her, not kidding, and to contact her. So how can people reach you? I'm conscious of the time and I want to keep time integrity. We have a few minutes left. So if you have any questions for Lisa, please put them on the comments. We are streaming live to several platforms and few pages, YouTube, on Facebook, but we actually, if you comment, we'll see them on this side. So please put any comments or questions before we head out. But yes, how can people contact you, Lisa, if they want to go further and learn more about what you do and maybe even work with you?
Oh, thank you. And if we have a couple minutes at the end, I want to add a little bit to what we were saying earlier. But in terms of reaching me, we'll be doing these coffee breaks every month, once a month, and we may be switching the times. So that's through Cool Chick Cafe, and we'll notify you because it turns out that now people are going back to work in person, and this 2:30 afternoon time is not as convenient for people. But we should have another one next month, and then. So every month we'll have a Cool Chick Cafe like this. And then also I have my own private Facebook group where I put a lot of content, and there's a link right there. Thank you, Jessica. Basically any content that I think would be helpful. It's not just about health and wellness, it's about life and living your best life, and share any sort of lessons that I may have learned. And I'm learning, and it's an place where people can share, contribute, learn, and hopefully a safe community where people can go to sort of share all of their insights and learn about living their best life, essentially.
Amazing. And what are we talking next time?
So next time we can go a little bit more, because of time, we'll go a little deeper into what radical self-care is and what it isn't. And then next time, it'll be much more of the how. So I know this first part, some of it may seem really simple. It's the why and the what, right? And then how. There's often we know up here what to do. But how do we actually implement it into our lives so that we are living the things that we know, right? And so next time will be all about how. Hopefully we'll be more interactive and how to implement radical self-care in your life, because one of the very most common objections is, wait, but I don't have time. Or I have to take care of all the kids. How am I going to do more self-care? So we'll talk about all of that and make sure that everyone who's on the call is able to take action steps that make it feasible and practical for them to implement this type and this level of radical self-care and therefore true wellness into their lives.
Yes, and that will definitely answer Diane's question and Allison's question. So make sure to tune in next call, and we'll also go on to more detail with that. But yes, Allison asked about, do you have any recommendations on how to consistently stay tuned in with your own needs? For example, to Jessica's example, how do I know if I need a nap or if I need cleaning my office? And then also, what are baby steps from Diane? You suggest to break the inertia of not taking care or even basic care to that matter. So maybe you can quickly address those in the next 2 minutes, and then knowing that we'll go deeper next month, where we'll be going deeper on this subject. But maybe you can address it. And of course, please head on over to Lisa's group on Facebook, Dr. Lisa Young. You'll find her on Facebook. And like that, you don't have to wait a whole month to talk about all this.
Yeah, I'll be putting content in there, and you can always ask questions in there. And it's a forum, essentially a safe place and private place for people to talk about all things related to life, health, and wellness. And just to my brief answer to those questions that came up, it's really, it's so individual, right? And that's one of the things I want to, it's so individual. Not only is it individual, but in any given moment or different phase in your life, what is filling your cup and what will be self-care for you could change. And so it's really, for me, it's one of the techniques is just to pause, right? To take a deep breath, to pause. I even close my eyes and just feel, okay, what do I need right now? And it could be, what does my mind, body, or spirit need right now, right? Like how can I feed it right now? And then usually if you come from that place, you're coming from your heart and not from here. And then the answer often, in my experience, bubbles up. And then you're like, oh, you know what I really need is to lie down and take a little nap right now. And that's a very short answer, and we'll go more into it next time.
We will. So we'll see you in exactly 1 month. And in the meantime, please head on over to the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Dr. Lisa Young, Dr. Lisa Young. And the link right below, right here, that's the link. Make sure you tune in. And also at the Cool Chicks, www.coolchicks.cafe, Cool Chick Cafe, where we all get together and have amazing fun and knowledge and connection and happy hours and these coffee breaks. Absolutely love it. So if you want to, and that's for ladies only. So join us. Lisa, any final words before we go?
This is so important. From all the things that I've learned in my own life as a doctor, all my life experiences, this is what needs to come first. Self-care, true radical self-care. And then everything else unfolds. And just a reminder that you are worth it and you deserve it. And we will talk about how to do it next time.
Let's do that. Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa, thank you so much for offering always such great value and connection. You're so heart-centered. And what a great reminder. I have now booked my massage. It is official. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.